this time.
Yeah.
Right, welcome to the Double Ups podcast. We are back, me and Danny Boy. Hello, Danny Boy.
We did do a episode a month ago.
We said we weren't going to talk about this.
And we did a Stillwater one, and we had the most incredible session. We hammered fish, double ups, showed you the best techniques, the best everything.
Dan, we said we weren't talking about this.
But then after like 40 fish between me and Brett realized he didn't press record on the camera.
Yeah, sorry about
Thanks,
that.
Brett.
Sorry about that. We'll try redo that, but it wasn't a really good day on the
It
water.
was a really good day. And then we went into deep depression mode.
Yeah.
When we didn't realize we got anything on footage.
And then the next sort of half an hour footage was horrific.
Horrific.
Dan drove over my line twice. It's nice.
Yeah, Brett likes to troll.
Alrighty, but enough of that. So just, thanks for your patience waiting for the next episode. Today, I think the idea is we want to spend a little bit of time talking about river techniques, maybe talk a little bit about the rivers in South Africa at the moment, how they're fishing. We've been out fishing quite a bit. And then, we want to get into leaders and setups and passing on some info on the types of leaders and setups and techniques we would fish on rivers. In different situations and in particular, I guess, around South Africa. So that's where we're going to go today. So, I mean, we've been largely on the vol up until now because it's just been such a great start to the season. Unfortunately, the rain seems to have come, but
end of the season.
Today. But Danny Boy, talk me through the vol. I mean, you've been out a lot as well.
So the vol, we had a really good season. The season somehow started really early. August.
Never
and
August.
We had a really cold winter, so I don't know how the water heated up so quickly, but we had quite, for the vol conditions, we had clear water, and the fish moved up early. They were in the rapids mid-August already. What I found this season on the vol that was a little bit different was, I don't know if it's because of the way we fish and we evolve, but they were definitely more picky in the techniques. Like I really found that smaller, lighter flies this season worked well. I'm not sure because it's something I've involved with my fishing, but the guys that I fished with definitely were struggling until we had to lighten up their tippet and lighten up their flies, and the numbers quadrupled.
So what are you fishing?
I was fishing lots of 2.5s. I was fishing 2.5s in the fast water, 2.5 and a 2.8. In the shallow water, 2.3 and a 2.5. That was my combination.
And your tippet?
My tippet, I was 6.5x trout hunter. That was my stock standard. Early season, I went to 6x. When the water's colder, they are a little stronger. But very quickly went to 6.5. When we had Julian here, the Frenchman, we'll speak about him later. He's also his 6.5 was perfect for him. Yeah. He was very tight on it. And
although we made him fish 7 for his first fish,
and
he snapped off.
Like he did land this huge grass carp with me on 6.5x as well, so that was pretty impressive.
Did he? That one in the picture? Yeah. 6.5?
I think so, if I remember. Or
crazy.
6.
Yeah.
But back to the same thing. It's something that we've been changing our fishing. We've been developing and working hard and
much lighter
tippet. And also when I did clinics this year, I did quite a few clinics on the vol and coaching some teams. It was the technique with fight and fish on the vol that was important. You can fish 4x and struggle to land a fish if your technique's not right. But if your technique's right with fight and fish, maybe we can chat about that.
Yeah, and the rods. I mean, we have to take into account the rods we're fishing as well.
Of course. Keeping the fish at the right angle, not trying to pull the fish upriver, getting behind the fish.
What mistakes have you seen this season? So I've been fishing a lot of the public venues over the last 5-6 weeks, and the biggest one I'm seeing on the water is people that catch fish can't convert them because the way they're fighting these fish. The yellow fish are strong. There's a lot of current on the vol. I think we need to talk a little bit about landing fish and where you want to get those fish. So maybe just a few notes from my side on that. One of the things that you want to be cautious of is you don't want the fish to get too far away from you. Often a yellow, its first run is a really good run. So you want to move with it a little bit or try to restrict that movement as much as you can, because once it gets distance on you in that river, you've got a big chance of getting snagged, or just the weight of the line is going to cause that fly to pop. That's the one mistake I've seen a bit. The other one is this constant changing of rod angle and you asking for trouble. That fly is moving in the mouth while the fish is moving, so you're going to drop fish like that. And then the actual netting of the fish. A lot of people, in fact, I've seen a few broken rods even this season, trying to net the fish once it's downstream of them, trying to pull it up through the current into the net. So the fish is fighting the current, the rod's at full bend, tippet's at its breaking point. So I think just on that, a few tricks. When you hook a yellow, or any fish for that matter, try to get your rod angled down and hold it with a slight diagonal to the water so you can get the fish just to sit in the current. And if you get that right with the fish slightly downstream of you with your rod held quite low or flat to the water, you'll see that fish just sits.
Can I just add to that point? Fish follow pressure.
Yeah.
So I always keep my rod, as Brett says, facing the sea, facing upstream.
Yeah.
And by holding it, even if you just stay still, the fish will eventually move up towards the pressure. But if you constantly think you are Harry Potter in Hogwarts trying to wave your wand around, then that fish is going to be very confused and uncomfortable and going to go for these long runs. So I like to hook a fish, keep my rod angle up, try to take a step down to change that angle, and keep that fish in front of you.
Then to the side
good.
And up.
And then when you pick him up, the only time you lift your rod is when you want to get his head out the water, and you want the fish coming straight towards you. So the current brings him into your net head first.
Yeah, and
that's the biggest mistake everyone's
100%. And the big trick is when you get your rod to the side and you get the right pressure on them, they'll actually sit. So if you're feeling uncomfortable and you're a bit of a mess, hook, set to the side, the fish will sit, and that'll buy you time to look at what water you can walk that fish into, where you land it, get your net ready. And then Dad's right, once you've got it tied, what I like to do is move it a little bit up above me by just moving my feet or my rod angle, because it'll move up towards the pressure, and then lift it up the current and see if it's ready to run. If it starts to run, you just drop your rod and it'll sit again. And then you move it up and down 3 or 4 times until its head comes up and you slide it into the net.
I also think an important thing is if you got a really big fish, or even a mudfish for that matter, when the fish gets to your feet, keep the fish swimming. So I like to do these rod things, maybe change angles slowly, but keep the fish swimming. You don't want him holding in the water the whole time. If it's one of those like a lethargic fish,
I like to bring them up and down slowly,
as long as he's
just
moving and building up some lactic acid.
But Dan's right. The big one is get him hold, get him in front of you, and slide him with the water towards you. And I think that's something we need to incorporate. It works for bigger trout. It works for any fish, really. The vole is a great way to practice it, though, because those fish fight dirty. The current is strong. So if you're not doing that right, you're going to drop a lot of fish. And if I look at junior nationals, speaking to some of the youngsters, loads of those youngsters lost fish fighting or landing fish downstream or letting them get too far away. So just basics there, I think.
I think a lot of people as well, I've seen they hook a fish, and the first run of a yellow fish is intense. And people, for some reason, are running through the water to follow the fish. I think just let him run. He'll probably come back. Don't let it ruin your whole water and you're going to break a knee or something. And I see everyone running after their fish on the first run. I mean, it's this,
Another one that's probably quite key here is, especially on the vole, is often you'll find the yellows holding up against structure, a dead tree, whatever it might be. If you hook that fish, don't try and pull him out of that structure. You're not going to have the strength to do it. Your tippet's not going to allow for it. Your rod's not. What you want to do is you actually want to pull him downstream and then pull him out with the current. So you can pull him out slightly at an angle. He'll follow you slightly out at an angle. You can manage the pressure. As he goes in, loosen the pressure, because as you take the pressure off, he'll stop swimming in, and then you can pick the pressure up and bring him out of the trees. But don't try and pull him out against the current, because he's just going to duck further and further in there and you're dead. Follow the current downstream and just bring him out at an angle. And if he runs under, just give him a little bit of slack so he eases off, and then bring him again with the current. Those are the tricks there.
And then like another big issue I've seen this year, it's a constant thing. It's last year, the year before, but especially this year, is guys are still fishing too heavy. First of all, there's nothing natural about a heavy fly on the bottom. You get stuck a lot.
You're going to foul hook fish.
Foul hook a lot of fish. And I'll talk about that again now. But as well, if you think about a nymph drifting in the water, they sit in specific lanes in the current where there's conveyor belt of food coming to them consistently. And the lighter your fly, the more that fly will be manipulated by the current and go where those fish are holding. A heavy fly is not going to be manipulated by current as a light fly would. And especially when the mudfish start, everyone's like, oh my God, I had an incredible day. I caught 30 mudfish, but one was in the mouth. Great. But
Yeah.
if the mudfish are around, the yellows are still there, but you're still fishing too heavy. If you fish, a yellow fish will very easily all day come through the column and eat a fly mid column or even close to the surface.
Not all day though. In the
afternoon,
morning, morning they eat down.
But still, I would rather fish lighter above the mudfish, and you won't fly hook mudfish, and you'll be surprised if you have a light fly and a good drift. You hook those mudfish in the mouth.
100%.
They eat flies.
Just on that, there's a trick. Yeah, there's a trick to that. So when I'm not going to drag you down here. But when you're fishing for yellows, and I think the youth nationals was a good example. Speaking to our kids, in the mornings, a lot of the fish they caught very deep. So your flies can be slightly heavier. You can go for 3 mil, get the flies to the bottom. The fish aren't coming up as high in the column. As the sun gets higher and the day gets warmer, they definitely, yellows in particular, they come up through the columns. By the end of the day, by 2-3 o'clock, in that midday eat, you're catching them really high.
I found on the Vaal this season from September to end of October, it was 10:30 was my mark.
Yeah.
As soon as 10:30 came, the fish like quadrupled in numbers. What I also like to do in the morning is when the fish are looking down, I'm on the water at 8 o'clock, I'd sometimes put a heavier fly as my top dropper. They worked really well for me to keep both flies further down or keep them like normal, but I'd have a more of a horizontal angle on my indicator. So I keep the flies further down rather than one up, one down. Those are my two.
But you've been liking the grayling drift now, but
yeah. So the reverse drift. Maybe let's keep that and we'll do it when we're on the river.
We'll show it.
We're supposed to fish today, but it's flooded and cold.
Not great. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so cold. I was going to wear my waders during this talk.
Let's talk about fishing with Julian. So Dan and I spent quite a few days fishing with the 2-time individual world champion, like 5-6-time team world champion. Just class.
Unfortunately, in my education, I can't count that many.
Yeah. So he's so what's interesting for us is we've spent quite a lot of time with David Ferreira and Pablo and some of the Spanish anglers, which is I think done a lot for South African fly fishing in a huge way. But it was quite nice to fish with a French angler and spend time with them on the water because they do things differently. Some things they definitely do differently, and there were some learnings. I mean, you spent time with him on the Vaal. I got to spend some time fishing dry fly with him on a trout river, which was super interesting. What did you pick up on the Vaal?
I mean, nymphing's nymphing and yellowfish is yellowfish and trout's trout, but there's definitely the difference where the Vaal, the fish, I really like a slow drift, and then not by using weight, by using technique to slow down my flies as much as possible.
Yeah.
Where his staple technique is to fish a lot more through, up, and in the middle of the column, where his drift is not necessarily slower than the current, it's maybe the same speed in the current.
Yeah.
So those are the big things that I think that maybe we
quite a lot of contact as well. He plays contact at times. I watched him with his drifts.
Because trout eat a lot, they eat quick. Especially when the fly lands, you need contact immediately. But he fished really well. His leader was very interesting. He fishes a lot thicker mono or Euro leader than I do.
And he fishes a sighter. I think you still fish a sighter.
I don't fish a sighter.
You fish through the whole way. He might go back.
Now I'm fishing a sighter again. It's just interesting. And then after he left, I said to myself, okay, I'm fishing 3 times a week now. I'm experimenting with what I learned from Julian and I'm trying to pick it up. So I'm still trying to fiddle through everything a little bit and get through it.
But my notes were a lot of single nymph. I watched him go to single nymph a lot, so they obviously have comfort with that. He throws a Purdy on quite a lot as well, and I think that's just because he can quickly control depth, which I liked. And then the other one is, we've had chats about this. I think from a nymphing point of view, as South African anglers, we've caught up a lot. I don't think there's that much difference.
Just efficiency.
Yeah, I was going to say efficiency and probably accuracy as well. Yeah. He's very accurate in what he's doing, and maybe there's a little gap there from an accuracy point of view, but I think we can close those gaps up.
We just don't fish enough dry fly.
100%. So dry fly. So I was saying to Dan, I spent probably 3-4 hours with him fishing up the Lundsklip River by Walkerson's, and what was so interesting was his dry fly, because if you fish with the Spanish guys, they've got a very slow, well-managed cast. But
it suits their water.
Yeah, bigger water, 100%. Whereas the river we fished was a little bit tighter, and what was crazy watching Julian was the speed at which he would set the fly up. So before he dropped it on the water, he would use a lot of speed to just check his accuracy on a very small hole. and then he would slow or stall his release on his final cast, which would basically pile the entire maybe 1.2 meters of 7 or 8x, the last piece of his dry fly leader, into like just a pile on the pocket or hole, which ultimately meant that the dry fly sat in between kind of all this piled line. And because it was all piled together, it would drift at the same pace in that pocket. So that whole set of line that was sitting clumped together, as well as the fly, would drift over, let's say, a 3-foot pocket, but all at the same speed, which gave the fish a great opportunity to pick up the dry. But the accuracy in which he could do that in tight spots was incredible. But he used the speed of the cast to make sure he was on spot, and then he would just stall it and pull back. The line would fall, and the drift was crazy. The other thing was their knowledge of knowing what the fish want from a fly. So he had a fish come up and refuse his fly, doing something similar to this. And he said to me, he said the wing was too big. Not the fly was too big, he said the wing was too big. So all he did was cut the wing in half on the CDC. Next cast, fish came up and ate it. The drift you could see was maybe a little bit faster, but straight away the fish came up and ate it. So I think from a dry fly point of view, there's definitely some gaps there. For me, their accuracy is phenomenal. You can see they do a lot of it.
They're comfortable. They're just comfortable.
Yeah, and what they can do with their leader at that end point, they've worked that out over a number of years to be able to do it really well. So I think there's probably quite a big gap there.
Yeah, I think the last thing we can speak about, and then we'll move on with everything else, is that we've been stuck with small flies. And I don't have a single fly in my box, a nymph that's bigger than an 18.
We've almost overcorrected.
Yeah, but I think in South Africa we don't have the size insects that they maybe have in Europe or the USA. So I think that we fish a lot of 18s and 20s here, but they fish a lot of 14s and 16s. And we see in Spain as well.
Yeah.
Especially with the dryers. So they take out the dry fly. I'm like, no ways, that's bigger than my woolly buggers.
Even in France, if you saw the nymphs the guys were winning on, they were 16s. They were
so
bigger.
I think it's just a point, like, there's just have to play around. So I will be tying some bigger flies and experimenting with them. Here, I still believe the smaller flies work in South Africa, because our insects are smaller. I mean, our insects are 18s and 20s.
You don't really fish outside of 18 to 20. That's what
now
we fish.
We're getting ready for America, and it just looks like some of them are on 12s and 14s.
Yeah.
I think it's just to keep open-minded and just keep on trying to be a leader, not a follower. Just experiment.
I think that's the point. So I think dry fly, we're still learning as a country. I think nymphing, we've evolved to a point where we need to start developing as opposed to following. I think we've followed as a country, and that's how we've got so close to some of the other countries around the world. But I think the time's come now where we need to start to evolve our fishing, and we need to be the ones developing new techniques, new game plans,
it's
new
like
whatever it might be.
Yuri Pichard from Czech Republic, when I was a junior and I was 17 years old in Czech Republic, he said to me, I was saying, Yuri, what's your leader? What's your flies? What's this? He says, Daniel, you can follow the Czech, but don't copy the Czech. If you copy the Czech, you're not going to ever be better than the Czech. But if you learn from the Czech and fish like a South African, you will be better. Yeah,
it's actually the perfect point. Yeah. And I think we got exposure now to the French, we fished with the Czechs, we fished with the Spanish a lot. Now we've got to start doing our own thing. And there's got to be a new evolution coming. We've been Euro nymphing for a long time now, and there's been tweaks on it, but I think we've got to take that a step forward. I mean, I think that covers it all.
There's a lot of things I want to say, but let's not make it too long.
Okay, perfect. Let's jump into leaders. Okay. You're going to take the nymphing leader? Yeah,
I'll take the nymphing leader.
Okay, then. So let's keep moving here. So leaders. I think leaders are a key question we get asked all the time. I'm happy to look at a few dry fly options. Maybe you start with some nymphing.
Yeah, so I really believe that the leader is the most important thing when it comes to Euro nymphing and dry fly fishing. And instead of asking everybody about the flies, you should get your leader right. I spend a lot of time. When I fish these days, I have 6 different Euro leaders on my chest back, and I'm experimenting. Which one do I like? This one's shorter, longer, indicators thicker, lighter. And I keep on changing. Windy conditions. What diameter do I want? That's the stuff that makes a difference.
And that comes down to micro drag. There's a bit of wind, it makes a difference. Micro drag in the water makes a difference. All of those little factors, I mean, you're talking about 0.5 millimeters, but they're making a massive difference.
Huge difference. And immediately, and you have to be comfortable with the choice of leader you're using for the conditions. And unfortunately, there's no one magic leader, magic size that works. There is the one I'm going to show you now is my go-to. Let me get straight to it. Okay, so...
But just before you get into it, I think it's also preference. Like you've got to find what works for you. So the leader Dan's fishing is not the one I'm fishing, and at different times in your career you're changing leaders. So I think it's what you're comfortable. You've got to find what you like at the time, and when you feel good with it, then you stick with that.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, go talk us through.
So there is my leader is pretty simple. Simple.
Simple?
No, it's not simple actually. It's pretty.
No, it's not
in the
simple.
middle there, but it changed a little bit now when Julian came to visit me.
Of course it did.
And I really like the way he did it. So I've kind of gone towards his way a little bit more, away from the Spanish and more towards the French.
Okay.
And I see it because we fish with everyone. Not everyone, but we can see how different countries fish. And okay, anyway, so my leader is a Uranum fly line. I make a micro loop at the end, either by attaching a micro ring or by folding over the fly line and using nano silk and making a micro loop. If you want to know how to do that, maybe we can do it in our next video.
Yeah, it's easy.
Yeah.
You just use the braid though. You cut the braid, loop the braid, and then very small. You usually put like a size 8 hook through, and so the hole is tiny. And the reason for that is you don't want anything to catch when you're nymphing, because if you're nymphing at range, your nymphing line is going through your eyes. So you don't want any sort of knot. It needs to be almost like one single line. It should feel like that.
Okay, so I use the new Solderini Harvest Mono.
Shops open,
Sean. It's really nice. They've made. I really like the Adams as well, but it's white, like a solid white. This is more of a solid yellow, chartreuse. It is really good stuff, and not for the color I use it. It's because of the profile in the material. It's a little bit stiff, not too stiff.
What sizing can you get?
3, 4, and 5x.
Okay, so 5.
Most important. So I change if there's a lot of wind. I go lighter, 4 or 5x.
Why? Why? Explain. It's important.
Because if you're using a thicker, higher diameter Euro leader, it picks up more drag. Just like if you fly in a kite, the bigger the wingspan, the more the drag. Same with the leader. And this is, this stuff. I know it's like 0.4 compared to point. It's like, it's the difference, but it made such a difference on your leader. And if you pick up someone else's lighter leader when you're fishing heavier and you do 2 drifts, you feel immediately that your drifts are better. And when your drifts are better, you're going to catch more fish. Those small changes are massive. I think I like to use a thicker leader when I'm using flies above 2.8 mils. So like a 2.8 or 3 mil bigger river. I use the thicker leader, not so break off fish, because 4x leader or 5x leader, you're not going to sample fish anyway. But you have more control with the heavier nymphs. With the lighter leader, the flies with the heavier flies are kind of just like it's very hard to get your accuracy right. You're casting the flies and not the leader. You must cast the leader with the heavier flies. And if the light's really bad, then I go to 3 or 4x Euro leader. Very important. And in Europe, they use thicker than we use.
Yeah, they do.
The water's clearer, so it's harder to see your indicator. And the light's got it's got
silver.
European miserable weather. Yeah, that's silver grey.
We call it silver.
Yeah, but we don't have that.
Yeah.
But in Europe they do.
If you fish Europe and you get to that afternoon session, you see the silver come on the water, and you're like,
it's impossible.
You can't see anything.
Indicator. So they fish. I think that's why they fish a little thicker than we do.
Probably.
But I think we've gone way too thin. So sometimes I think there's a time and place for it. So I use personally 4 or 5x. 4x is my thicker 1.65 liter, and I think the lighter one is 1.45, so around there, something like that. And then if you haven't got good eyes, you can use the 3x as a 1.85 liter. So I do that for 10 to 12 feet, and then I put a piece of clear fluorocarbon or nylon, whatever you've got, maybe a foot and a half, and then I put Rio 2-tone or Solderini 2-tone or 3-tone, high-vis mono, pink, yellow, high visible, maybe for about 30-40 centimeters, and then I put a tippet ring. The reason you do that is because the clear part in between the Solderini and the 2-tone, it really helps that little indicator stand out a lot more. And if you do want to fish deeper water, you can very easily put the 2-tone in, and you've got the clear part and then the hard part. That's all a thinner diameter. But I do like to use a thinner indicator. So even if I've got a 3, 4, or 5x mainline, I like to use a 5x indicator.
Are you dropping the clear mono size down then?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the clear mono will be 5x most of the time on my leader, and the indicator will be 5x. Unless the light is really bad, then I use a thicker two-tone indicator so I can see it better. But the reason I keep it light at 5x is because if I'm fishing deeper water, I can immerse the 5x two-tone and clear mono into the water without creating too much drag. Because if I fished 4x or 3x two-tone or fluoro, then if that goes in the water, it will be a lot more drag than my tippet, so I won't get a thing. So it kind of keeps everything.
And depending on the depth of the water you're fishing, you want to be able to just dip your indicator without having to change your leader every time, because water's dynamic, it's changing, and you need to be dynamic. So you
and
can't
actually,
just
this leader is the same one that Katka uses, and the same one that David in Czech Republic uses.
Yes, same as Klamski. Yeah.
So everyone kind of uses. Like, it seems like the Europeans all kind of go for this.
I use a different one. I have no problem with that leader. I think it's great. I think it's just a preference thing. So I use a 14, 15 foot of straight pigeon, same micro loop as you. Straight pigeon, usually either 0.12, 0.14, 0.16, depending on the type of water. I don't fish a tippet ring. I think logically, I mean, it doesn't make a difference. You can tie a double Duncan so quickly. I'm quite happy just to do that and then tip it off that. So typically, maybe a little bit thinner, 0.14, 0.12. So it's a very light leader, and then straight tip it with your 1 or 2 flies. So it's a simpler, less knots leader. It can sometimes be a little bit more difficult to see, but then I'll use some sort of paste on the line so that I can see it a bit. I also found moving from the Nymphomaniac to the Solderini, fishing that leader became easier because I think you can fish so much lighter on that Solderini. But I am quite tempted to start playing with this leader again as well, because a lot of guys are doing it.
My leader was dark red.
Yeah.
And I think there's still a place for it, but I think it's just nice to have. I think the difference is when I try to speak to Julian and understand it, is that a lot of the time you fish the lighter leader, like Brett's leader explained to you, you're kind of controlling the nymph. Where if you fish a leader like I've explained to you, you're controlling the leader, and the nymph is kind of more drag free. There's contact on the tip. But I think it's just plain and trying to understand what's
and what I've done is on the last part of my coloured mono is on that pigeon, I'll do like black barring to allow for the same depth control. So if I want to put the nymphs deeper, I can see based on how many bars I have under the water, or the film of the water, how deep I am, and you also get used to it. But I think at the moment, like we said earlier, one of the things I'm trying to do is I'm trying to evolve my fishing beyond just copying other anglers. I think we've got to be unique, and we've got to diversify, and we've got to come up with stuff that is our own so that we can be different wherever we fish in the world. So I'm trying a lot of different things. So I think playing with different leaders is a good idea. Just on dry fly leaders.
Let me just finish.
Yeah, go for it.
With the tippet, we love trout hunter fluoro. It is fantastic.
But there's 2 reasons. So I mean, Barry often reminds me that the first nationals I won on Stroft, and I did, and that's fine. But if I'd known what I know now, I wouldn't have. Trout hunter gives you, for me, 2 things. It's got a nice stretch on it, not enough that you're going to lose fish, but enough that if you get a good fish and you get in a tangle, it's got enough to give you a bit of leeway. But the part I love about it the most is the way it frays. It doesn't just snap. So when you've got a fish running you over rocks or over, that thing can fray down to its last fibre. You can almost get by on it. So,
but it is made of gold, and it has gone expensive.
It's more expensive than platinum.
Yeah, I know it is.
Per kilo, it's like ridiculous.
This is the second option. Solderini have come up with a great fluorocarbon S-Power Elite competition that is almost not half price, but getting there, same 50-meter spools, and I've been using a lot of it, and it is flipping fantastic.
A lot of the guys overseas use it as well.
And in South Africa now, a lot of the comp guys are using it. Maybe on practice competition, or I have some guys, Rob, Scott, and the East Cape boys are telling me this is for them better than the trout hunter. It's definitely as strong. So I think play around with it, and just kind of.
As a cool tip for you as well that we use when we train is if we're training for a Worlds and in the days before the competition, maybe 2-3 days before the competition, we'll always fish one tippet size lighter than what we're planning on fishing in the first competition day. So if we're planning on fishing 7x, we'll fish 8x. And the reason for that is when you move from 8 to 7 on the competition day, that 7 feels like rope. So you tend not to snap any fish. You don't make many mistakes, no tangles, because the heavier you get, the easier it is to fish. So it's a nice trick. If you want to get better at fishing lighter tippets, go really light, and then you can work your way back, because all those other tippets classes become easier
but
to fish.
just remember, if you go lighter, your weight combination do change.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah.
And I was fishing the other day on the Vol. I was trying to catch some big yellows. I was fishing 6x. Then I went down to 6.5x for my normal fishing. And I was hold the two tippers next to each other. I was taking a shortcut and joining the two because I was a bit lazy. And I could not believe the diameter difference from 6 to 6.5.
It's big.
I looked at it, I was like, no. I looked at my spools, I was like, there has to be, it is a huge difference.
I always laugh when you do these things, when you're fishing like 8x and you go back to 7, or you're fishing 7, you go back to 6. You almost look at the roll and you're like, are you sure this is 6 and not 5 or 4? Like often I'll be like, but
wait until you go to Seychelles, you're fishing 1.2 mil and coming back and fishing 8x.
But it's the same with flies. Have you ever been fishing like 3 mils and then all of a sudden you move to a 2.5? You're like, is this a 2.3 or 2? You're like, what happened?
You know what they need to do? And this is for the Chinese manufacturers. Just like all the fly lines have done printing on the lines. Every bead needs to come up with a print on it.
Yes.
Imagine that.
Yeah, a little dot tool or something.
Or it's mark, or 2.3 or 2.5 on the bead.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Game changer.
Yeah, because I often look and I'm like, which is which?
Sometimes I have no idea what's going on.
Just like, let's lucky pack it, let's see what happens out there.
It's like, well, now I think all my 2.3 is going to be one color bead and my 2.5 is going to be another color bead. Make life easy.
You can't do that because when you need it, you're screwed. Okay, so dry fly leaders. So I just want to talk quickly about 2 dry fly leaders. I've been fishing the Spanish dry fly leaders for the last probably 3-4 years. Their dry fly leader, and I'm happy to send the breakdown of what that looks like, but it's effectively like an 8-knot leader. It's what I typically do with that leader is I will take the Maxima Chameleon, just a normal tapered leader at a 3 or 4x level, and I will needle knot that onto my line, and I'll have 70 centimeters of that, so slightly longer. And then from there you start knotting the leader down and dropping down in sizing and diameter. And the idea behind that is depending, and I've got variations of this leader depending on how much wind.
That's the problem of it.
Yeah. So you end up with multiple variations, because I'm fishing the Cape in wind. I can't fish the 20-foot version, doesn't work, so you have to play with it. What I do like about this leader, this multi-knot leader, is once you get used to it, you can do a lot with it. Like you can manipulate it in so many different ways to throw really big seas or throw lots of slack, and if you're throwing decent loops, you don't tangle it a lot. And I'm, I think, still fishing the same sort of 6 knots of the Chameleon breakdown, so the leader piece and the various segments of the Chameleon, Maxima Chameleon. And then your 2 last sections are Trout Hunter or Solderini or your Tippet. And I haven't changed that Chameleon piece in probably a year and a half, because I'm just fishing that same. Yeah, so it works. It works nicely. What I don't like about the leader is if you want to change that leader to dry dropper, it gets complicated, because now you might not have the distance to allow you to do it, or you might sacrifice having Chameleon too close to your dry fly, so that is a problem. The other thing I don't like about it is if you're not used to fishing the knots when you're landing fish and things, those knots are coming through your eyes, so it can become complicated. And if you're getting your line out and you don't have tricks or techniques to do that.
That's well, Brett, why we're trying to move away from it is because we don't fish enough dry flies in South Africa. We don't have the water to do it unless you purposely go out and you fish and dry fly.
Yeah.
We don't. It's not like the Spanish.
No, we change all the time. You're very seldom going out and fishing just dry.
And that leader, you need to be trained on it. You can't just pick it up and be able to throw it.
It's taken me years to get it right, and watching videos of David do it and then trying to mimic that and going so but
it works well.
But my caveat is I love it. At the moment, it's my preference. Here's the kicker. There are a couple of different leader combinations. So one of them is you can take any kind of tapered leader. You can use a Chameleon again if you want, or Trout Hunter tapered leader is probably better, like the finesse leader. and you needle knot that on, or however you want to knot it onto your fly line. I like the needle knot because again it's straight, so there is no knot piece.
No hinge.
That connection is just smooth. But then what you do is you run that leader for like 8 or 10 feet depending on the leader you want to build, and then you build 2 sections off that. So you're going to build a buffer section which will help you collapse the leader how you want to do, and then depending on the wind and the type of river, a longish piece of 7x or 6.5x or whatever it might be. It's a much smoother leader, far less knots, far less complicated. I personally don't think you can be as kind of I don't think you can get the same level of finesse off it, but what you can do with it is very close to the knotted leader. And on the flip side, it's super easy to tie, to fix, and if you want to move that leader into a dry dropper setup to fish dry dropper at range, it's simple. So it's probably a better starting point, and then you can have the other leader. I've got both set up on 2 different fly lines. One big thing I did want to just bring up is the fly line you fish on your dry fly rod. So I fish a 2-3 weight Solderini 9'6" light rod, but I much prefer a 2-weight line on it. I think because you're not fishing dry fly on rivers at huge range. So I find you can be really accurate with a light leader. I feel like even when I fish that 3-weight line on that rod now, it feels overweighted, like it feels too heavy.
I think what I do as well as me and Brett will fish exactly the same leaders, both of them.
Yeah.
But I also like the 2-weight line because it allows you to collapse the leaders, and you can still push the leader and it still collapses. But the only time I have a 3-weight rigged would be for Cape streams or anywhere where there's a lot of wind in your face. Maybe. Shorten your leader 16 foot and you can
even
punch
shorter.
a little bit more. Yeah. You don't need to go long because the leader and the fly line's are there to collapse, so it does.
Yeah.
Everyone, the old school style is everyone wanted to tape a leader with a draft. Still, everyone comes to the shop wants to imagine themselves throwing this beautiful leader thrown out, landing like this.
Straight.
That's instant drag.
Yeah.
That's why you don't catch fish on dry fly.
Yeah.
So you need to do collapse. But we will, when the weather clears up, hopefully in 12 months from now, the water drops. We
can show
our
you.
Our plan was to show you
today.
But
just on that point, it's a good point. So I exactly that. I thought the perfect dry fly cast was lay it down, everything folds out dead straight, fish eat. It's not like the idea is exactly. If you can picture a soft serve ice cream into a cone, you want your tippet section to land pretty much like that ice cream goes in with the fly somewhere in there. Because what happens is the current pulls the line, but the fly doesn't drag. So whether you cast a sea cast so that it just goes with the current, or you just all in one ball, that's actually what you're looking for. It doesn't look as good, but that's what gets eats. And the guys in Europe have perfected that because their fish are more finicky, more tricky. So if you're not doing that, they don't eat. And here, obviously, if you do it, I don't think our fish are as picky when it comes to dry fly.
No, they aren't. But still, a bad drift doesn't get eaten.
Unless you're at Verlorenkloof and you have to be skating it.
But it's essentially Gauteng's overstocking policy.
Yes, you must make sure there are lots of fish and they're fighting for food. The last thing I wanted to touch on quickly is just box setup. I know Dan's got his around here somewhere. I think there are lots of different ways to set up to go onto the water. For me personally, I've gone much lighter. I like less complicated on the water, so I've used the CNF. I think I'm going to move to the Mad Box coming now because that box is great. This is a great box. The problem with it is it's a little delicate. This one's probably 2 years old and it's lasted quite long. But
I've gone through 3 in 2-3 years.
You've gone through 3, but he's not light on any tackle.
I think the issue with this is a great box, and the way Brett's done this beautifully, we've all kind of moved to the same idea. The only problem with this is not meant for South African conditions, so the glue falls apart, everything melts on it.
Yeah, it's hot
But there's a 3D custom one, a plastic one. It's an unbelievable box that I've been testing, and we've got around.
This is the Mad Box, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that I fished this. That's the way to go.
It will be probably in the shop in about 3 or 4 weeks' time.
But where I wanted to go with this is, I think even that box, you want to customize it to a level that you've got a battle box, so you can get what you need. Your flies set up with your sheets however you want them. I always have a magnet close by so I can just drop flies onto it. On the back, the way I set mine up is I've got an extra back battle box, but mostly because I just want my pliers close by. And then the stuff that you're going to use around drying your flies, your paillette paste, and make sure it sits nicely on your chest. Nippers. And this is great. When I go out fishing, I have my net off the back of this. and that's it. I don't need anything else. I literally can fish with this comfortably.
I think it's hard to get to the step where the stage where you can know what you're comfortable using, but you feel so much better on the water.
Yeah, light and easy. I mean, when I go out to the Vol, I literally have my net. I put this with my net. I grab my rod and off I go. You don't need your tippet is sitting at the back here, so you've got 3 rolls of tippet. The only part I ever get stuck is if I'm wet wading is probably where to put my phone.
Yeah, me too. But then I've got this.
Yeah. So I figured out. So the reason I have this is to make sure the box never falls open, the little Velcro. But then I put my phone inside, and then it's great. Your phone sits perfectly inside. So yeah, I think one thing we must look to do is not overcomplicate how we go on the water, and I think this has made a big difference in my world, just around sticking to the basics and simply fishing what I need to fish, as opposed to carrying tons of stuff and having a sore back and whatever else it might be.
We're getting old, so we need to chop weight.
The last thing I want to talk about quickly before we close out today is, and we get this question a hell of a lot, is arrive at the water, river section, how do we fish it? And we were chatting about it earlier today. I think the first thing we need to tell everyone is it evolves and it changes. How we fish it in the morning might be different to the afternoon. How we fish it today versus tomorrow might be different. Water might be up. Water might be the same, but pressure has caused the fish to move. So it changes. But a river is a bit like a map, right?
It is. And I was saying to Brett that the way I approach a river, the way I've developed and taught myself to fish a river is don't go there with preconceived ideas. I feel comfortable, and Brett feels comfortable going on any river in the world and finding fish. Why? Because we've been able to identify what water works for certain technique. For example, I know that a river flowing at the same speed at a nice depth is great for double nymphing. Yeah. A river with lots of pockets, a complicated current, is great for single nymphing.
Why?
Because you don't want 2 flies on either side of the current fighting each other and creating drag. You want to hold a fly in a single current for as long as possible to get to the depth with as little weight as possible.
And it's a key point, because I've only recently in the last couple of years changed this. I would fish double nymph everywhere, and in the pocket water I didn't have the success that others had. And it was simply because this fly is pulling this way, so neither of them are getting a natural drift. Whereas when you stick a single fly at the right weight, you can get a great drift, you get to eat, it's uncomplicated. So those are things that we need to do. Julian does that a lot. I watched him. As soon as he got to more pockety water,
Greg as well. When I started fishing with this French, Greg only fished single nymph. Too much actually, and then he says no, he has to put double nymph in his game. So now he's got the perfect balance.
It's knowing where to fish it. But just on the water, whether you're fishing the Vol for yellows or Bushmans for trout, or I don't know, somewhere in Europe for trout or grayling, largely they sit in the same type of water. You're looking for seams, so changes in current, and it's important to fish both sides of the seam. So the slack side of the seam, often you'll find the smaller fish. And when you go into the faster side of the seam or more into the current, you'll pick up slightly bigger fish. But it's important, a lot of people don't change their fly. So they'll stick with the same fly, and all of a sudden that fly is going over the top of the fish's head, not giving them a chance to get the eat. So when you make that change, and it might only be a foot in distance, you need to make sure that if you're fishing a 2.5 mil here, you go to 3 mil here, so that you can get the fly to where the fish is. Looking for eddies, riffles, undercuts,
and I think what's
heads,
also important
all these
is
things hold
once
fish.
you fish a river on a certain day, you kind of say, oh, all the fish are sitting with the tail out in this depth of water. I promise you it's going to be pretty consistent for that session where those fish are going to be holding. So don't, everyone wants to cherry pick. And I think it's also important that you find it's actually an interesting point I made in my clinic as well the other day, is that you've got A, B, and C water. And Julian was saying that, fish your A water, then your B and your C. Fish your C water before you fish another piece of A water. Because you might find in that time of the day that all the fish are in the B or C water, if it's the water temperature, the oxygen levels, and then instead of trying to target all your A water, fish might be in C in the morning session, so fish the C water until they move to that B or A water.
Yeah.
So find the kind of water the fish are holding at. Fish 3 different types of water when you start. Find where the fish are, and then stay in that kind of water consistently for that session until you find it slowing down a bit.
And I've seen that with Europeans. David Arquet, when we were fishing side by side, I watched him. He searched, and then when he found the fish for a 45-minute period, he absolutely hammered them. But he'd covered a lot of water just to find out where those fish were, and then hammered them. I'm personally trying to move away. My kind of tactic in nationals or whatever has always been to fish. If I've got 3 A sets, is to rotate them until they slow down. What I'm trying to do now, and Julian actually showed me some really nice tricks for it, is to fish your A piece more comprehensively so you don't leave fish behind. Because I think what we don't realize is fish that are eating dry flies are not necessarily eating nymphs. So what you do by not covering the water first on dry is you cut those fish out immediately by spooking them with your nymphs. So I watched him. He was like, every good hole, they'll dust it quickly with the dry to get those 2 fish that'll come up. And then they'll dry dropper, so they suspend that nymph and they get the fish eating high in the column, and then they'll drop their nymphs to the bottom. So like I'm trying to be more methodical with fishing those holes well, and rather than taking 5 fish quickly and moving on, taking 10 fish, but making sure you've really covered it well and slowly. And a little bit of theory there is kind of back of the hole to front of the hole, near side to far side, and then shallow to deep. So those, like that mantra running through your head the whole time. Have I fished it from the tail to the head? Have I fished it from the shallow side into the deeper side or into the current? And have I fished it from a shallow depth as where your flies sit right to the bottom? And I watched with Julian on the holes he fished. He would pick up 4 or 5 trout out of a hole. I would maybe get 1 or 2. But he's covered all of those different areas and he's done it really, really well. So I think personally, maybe not we, but I'm definitely leaving fish behind because I'm not doing that well enough. And I think overseas, that's definitely cost me. Here, I think we can get away with it because you can kind of run between holes a bit, but it's a habit I'm trying to get away from.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think that's it, bro.
I think it's good. Lovely.
Let's hope you press record this time.
I did. So peeps, the shop's open. XFA have now got this new pink fishing bag.
It comes with 4 nappies.
Yeah, it comes with 4 nappies. It's absolutely specialist. We're here with Daniel sight fishing with small nymphs to some pretty large trout. Oh, there's one chasing it.
No, it's Julian.
Yes, Julian. And there is Mr. Julian, also on a fish.